Hello and welcome to Medicamentum Authentica. I'm Dr. Andy Kaufman, and I have a very special guest today that you may have heard me mention before. This is Dr. Jennifer Daniels, and she is someone who has been a major influence on my natural healing practice. I've learned incredible amounts of information from not only her material, but also I participated in her home healers course. And I'm really excited that she accepted my invitation to come and talk to us today about a number of things. So please welcome Dr. Daniels to the show. And also, I thought it would be nice to have her give her the opportunity to tell a little bit about her story about how she came to this sort of truth in medicine space that she has been a pioneer in. So, Jennifer, will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So, my name is Jennifer Daniels. I did go to medical school. I went to Harvard undergraduate. I went to University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine. At the same time, I went to Wharton Business School. I got an MBA in healthcare administration. My big goal in life was to go back to my itty-bitty ghetto in Syracuse, open a medical practice, get everybody healthy so they could all be financially independent. So I was very narrowly focused throughout my whole journey of going through Harvard, going through medical school, even business school, on being helpful to that one person who's going to walk into my office with a problem and be able to get them better so it could change their life for the better. That was my singular goal. Now, economically, my background was, even though I grew up in an inner city neighborhood, our family income was more or less 5 times the national average. So literally, I had to leave home before I heard the words, "I can't afford it." I didn't even know there was such a thing. Because I heard on the TV, that all white people were richer than black people. And so since we never had a problem with affording anything, I just knew all white people, of course, were even better off. But the reason that's important here is when people offered me a boatload of money for anything, I would just say, let's put the money aside. Let's talk about what are we talking about here? Is this a good thing? Do I want to do this? And so I was not sensitive to financial incentives because that was not my area of deficiency. So I didn't have any, no one could say to me, "Oh, you'll never be able to take care of yourself economically." Like, you gotta be kidding me. I come from the ghetto. Everything's cheap. Of course you can support yourself. This is not a problem. So, and my father, he felt the banks were evil and you should never borrow money. So, of course, I graduated with basically no debt. So a lot of the subtle financial incentives that doctors are put under, I did not have. And so this freed me to just look at each and everything I encountered as, is this going to help the patient? Was that patient really help? Did that patient benefit? Did we make a difference? And since that was the only thing on my mind as I went through medical school, I noticed very quickly that stuff was not helping. So I wasn't asking myself, is this going to pay my debts? Is this going to handle a lifestyle that I want to have? Is this going to, that question, it just never entered my mind. Am I going to be able to pay my practice overhead? Because I was going to go into family practice. I had that figured out. And I was just me and a receptionist, or I could be my own receptionist. I mean, I was just like, okay, ready to go. And I was ready to go live back in the ghetto, just like any other person in the ghetto, in a house in the ghetto. I was okay. So I didn't have those bigger questions weighing on me as I went through medical school. And so, for example, one easy diagnosis, headache. There were lots of drugs for headache back then, and none of them worked. And one day I went to my mailbox and there was this book, Quackbusters, and it basically put down all types of natural therapy because they were unproven. I'm like, well, stuff from medical school appears to be unproven. What's the difference? It's all the same to me. I don't get it. But if I had had the financial bias of, ooh, I have to make a lot of money on this, I'm glad they're putting those other people in their place. So,
well, Jennifer, you did make the decision to go to medical school, right? So at some time you had some, view of doctors and medicine as doing the right thing, right?
Exactly. I thought I was going to come back to my neighborhood and be helpful. So halfway through medical school, I realized that this had to be one big scam. So what do? Well, you call your mother on the phone. Mom, it's all lies. Oh, Mom, they're teaching us all these lies. Oh, no, what are we going to do? And so, of course, I was going to do the right thing, right? Leave medical school, and go look for the truth. And Mom says, whoa. Calm down. I think you're taking this a little too hard here. Maybe a Caribbean vacation. My mother choked up thousands of dollars for me to take a 1 week Caribbean vacation with the person of my choice. And so I came back. I felt a little better. I said, okay, all right. But I graduated, and I even I went to the dean every semester saying, hey, nothing's working. What's up here? And he said, next semester you're going to learn the cures. Of course, it never came. I graduated during the time of HIV, which is very significant to this particular viral situation.
Yeah.
And so I was in medical school, and they're like, oh, we don't have a test for it yet, but we're going to get one. We don't know what really causes it, but we're going to figure it out. We don't have any proof, but we're going to get it. And so you guys just follow orders. It's going to be an epidemic, and the government will tell you what to do and follow orders. And so, of course, we know what happened with the HIV/AIDS epidemic. So long story short, I went into medical practice. I did go back to my ghetto. I opened a medical office. Actually, I bought a city block and built my own office and did very well. And ultimately, for reasons no one really understands, my license was suspended. I was put on a terrorist list and 2 do not employ lists. And once that happened, I realized the solution was I had to leave the country. I just wasn't safe there anymore. But before my license was suspended, I did establish a scholarship fund for the neighborhood kids. I did get the streets fixed. I got affordable family homes built. I shut down 5 drug dens, demolished them, as a matter of fact, and stopped the merger of 2 banks that were going to destroy the lending in our community, and ultimately interfered with a $30 million bank robbery. I think that was the last one.
Oh, I see. I guess the medical board doesn't like interfering with bank robbery.
Exactly. So that brings in why license anybody. And the reason to license people is so that if you do something the government does not approve of, they can immediately shut you down economically. And
well, also, isn't a license really permission to do something that's otherwise illegal?
Correct. And that was reviewed in medical school in depth, that when we do a public exam, it's not rape because we have a license.
Right.
So all these women who are submitting to screening and pelvics are basically it's ritual rape. The medical benefits are, just not there.
Well, don't forget the prostate exam.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, we get it
being
too.
Castration. Yeah, so women are being raped and the men are being sodomized. Yeah, right, exactly. So which brings us to today's topic.
Seriously.
God. Yeah. Where do we start?
So, I mean, I've been pretty vocal about the current situation. I've been very critical of the science behind, allegedly isolating and identifying viruses that cause these diseases, especially COVID-19. Right. And I know, that when I watch your weekly shows, that you're making a lot of the same points about the mortality statistics and things like that. So what's your overall theory about what is really going on right now?
To be really blunt, it might just cause people just to shut this down and turn away, is just the emperor has no clothes. There is no virus. The whole thing is one big hoax to distract people from what's really going on. And right. I talked to someone earlier today, and they said, but why? I said, open your eyes. Did you see the stock market crash? Did you see the $2 trillion bank bailout? Oh, you missed it. Did you see that every business in America is crashing except Amazon? Did you miss that? That the virus cannot live on cardboard for only 24 hours, but on a ceramic countertop it lives for 7 days? Really? Even though the nutritional content, cardboard is a kind of a biological material. It seems to me a virus would be able to make it there. I don't know. So obviously, since you have this shipping remote business that relies on cardboard, and brick and mortar have these counters that people walk into, obviously you're shutting down all the brick and mortar businesses, and boom, the only business left standing is Amazon. So
I mean,
again,
even the hospitals are suffering, right? I mean, they're laying off nurses and pharmacists.
That's another evidence that there's no virus, because there's a couple of things that happen. Usually, what happens in these hard times is they spare the medical industrial complex, because the medical industrial complex is the means of control. The means you get these people to submit to physical violation of their bodies, to take dangerous pills, to live according to a code of behavior that doctors lay out that's sent to them through the government. But they don't need the government. They don't need the doctors anymore. They don't need the hospitals. If you can, and that's what this was all about. Can we get people to self-diagnose and to self-harm through their electronic devices? And the answer is yes. It says, like, doctors don't need you. Hospitals don't need you. So that's really what happened. And so what they did was hospitals didn't realize the hospitals fell for their own con. And again, it's the same with doctors. We all went through medical school. We all saw that nothing worked. But we were told that if we pretended, if we looked the other way, the system would take care of us. And that's basically the promise every doctor received in medical school. Hospitals, same thing. Hospital says, okay, we are going to follow these protocols. We see they're deadly. We see that we're killing people. And as long as we're making a profit with it and the government's okay with it, we're going to keep doing it, right? So the hospitals went along with the COVID situation, even though there is no evidence for it. It's like HIV, but the hospitals are profiting from HIV. The hospitals didn't realize they would get burned in the COVID thing, because the hospitals were told all non-essential services, shut them down. Only emergency room services. And the services that will be created by the epidemic are going to fill all your beds. Don't worry, we got you.
Right.
We're going to pay you. Blah, 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 blah.
But they were told to reduce their beds for non-COVID related inpatients, right?
Exactly. No, totally. So elective surgeries were canceled, routine screenings were canceled, all this stuff. Now, what this shows, by the way, by all the empty hospitals, is all the non-essential stuff they were doing that just wasn't essential to people's health. People should take note of that. All those tests are putting off, all those surgeries are putting off, none of them are necessary, even by medical standards. So just make a note of that. Even, I don't care what your doctor told you. You see, the stuff is not, your service is being canceled because it's not medically necessary, which is the truth, no matter how you may feel about it. Okay. But what happened was they shut down that revenue stream. The pandemic did not show up. And so now you've got the hospitals kind of, their butt is in a sling. But the question was, can we perpetrate what ostensibly is a medical health hoax without the hospitals and create the distraction we need? The answer was yes. And so the hospitals, we can expect it, they're not needed. So if whoever's running the show can do something like this, get people to self-isolate, get people to buy bleach, to buy toilet paper, use hand sanitizers. I mean, I saw videos on YouTube where people are literally cleaning their house again and again and again with bleach and alcohol. Wait.
What are the health effects of that?
Or the virus is not. And so people are being totally superstitious about this, which is good, because whoever's running the show, you need people to be superstitious. So it doesn't take much logic to sort this out. You don't even need to understand viruses to figure this out. And in fact, I'm just going to tell you right now, Dr. Kaufman, there is a COVID-19 standing right next to you. I'm telling you, it's big, it's huge. And if you don't do something I'm telling you, and I'll give you a list, I want you to self-isolate, but put a mask on right now. Put on some gloves. Any revenue stream you got, shut them down. Turn away all your customers. And in about 2 months, you'll be dependent on government checks. That's okay. That's where we want you. But you've got to do this, Dr. Kaufman, because if you don't, that COVID-19 standing right next to you is going to get you. Now, I'm telling you that COVID-19 is about 10 feet tall, weighs about 400 pounds. And if you don't do what I told you really quick, 2 weeks, it's going to demolish your whole friggin' house. You see those nice doorways you got? They're going to all turn to splinters. Now, you could just turn around and take a look and see if there's nothing that's 200 pounds and 10 feet tall, right? And then you would look at me and say, well, you're just being ridiculous. Get out of here, right? Okay, same thing. At this time, I put a blindfold on you. Now, you could turn and look, but you wouldn't be able to see if there was truly a 200-pound, 10-foot tall COVID-19 in the room that's about to get you, right? Because now you can't see. I blinded you. How would you know? Well, you could tell by listening. Can you hear the movement, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell by feeling. Once it bumped into you, like, ooh, maybe that's the COVID she talked about. Or you could wait the 2 weeks and see if all your doorways turn to splinters, right?
Yeah, or turn on the TV and see if they're reporting any 400-pound boogeymen.
No, don't do that. You and me, and we're talking about primitive senses. How do you know? And the way you know is the best you can do. You can't see the COVID-19, right? Because I blindfolded you. You can't hear it. Maybe I've put earmuffs on, or I've told you it's very silent and quiet, and you can't quite feel it, but you know it's getting closer. Okay, 2 weeks pass, and guess what? No splinters. What does that mean?
Well,
it means it's no COVID-19. And you're walking around the house. You're bumping into stuff. Of course, you have the blindfold on. But no COVID. So that's the way we know if something's true or not. If someone tells you that something is true, then you say, okay, if what you're telling me is true, and I believe you, then what are the consequences? And if those consequences don't materialize, then you have a false premise. Now, we only have two things we know about COVID-19. It's highly contagious, number one, and two, it's deadly, right? That's
so they say.
No, we're going to believe that. Those are two premises.
Okay.
What is highly contagious? Now, the regular person doesn't understand the importance of quantifying highly contagious. Highly contagious, let's go for medical references. Let's say gonorrhea is highly contagious. If one person has gonorrhea, they have sex with 10 people. Did you know only 6 of those people are going to get gonorrhea? The other 4 are not. Did you know that? So 6 out of 10 people you meet catch what you got. That's highly contagious. AIDS, did you know if you're HIV positive and you have sex with 3,000 HIV negative people, only one of them is going to turn HIV positive? That's not contagious. Okay, so let's just agree on what's contagious and what's not. So in order for COVID to be highly contagious, infected people would need to infect 6 out of 10 of the people they encounter. Let's just say. All right, we're in New York City, get on the subway. 6 out of 10 of those folks in that subway car need to be contaminated. All right, then you go to work, maybe 20 people, 10, 11 get contaminated. Then you catch the subway car home, take a different route, another 200 people. So how contagious is it? CDC tells us the average infected person is going to infect 2.5 people. That's not contagious at all. One COVID positive person in a room of 1,000 people packed shoulder to shoulder is only going to infect 2.5 people? Really? That's not contagious. It just isn't. And let's take this out. The person's contagious for 2 weeks. So you have this COVID-19 person walking freely, no mask, spreading germs everywhere, and they're only going to infect 2.5 people over a 2-week period. So the CDC itself has just told you this is not contagious. Okay, one false premise. So the next question is it deadly? We have 2 pieces of information that compellingly tell us it is absolutely not deadly. One is if you take a bunch of people who are in the ICU, test them all for COVID. You have the COVID positive group and the COVID negative group. They all have the same probability of dying. So COVID-19 positivity does not have any predictive value in terms of who's going to live, who's going to die. Having it does not increase your chances of death. So if you take two people in a controlled study, when I say controlled, I mean, if this one's got diabetes, that one's got diabetes. If this one's 60, that one's 60. Two people, same features, one COVID positive, one COVID negative, no difference in mortality at all.
Wow.
And this is why they stopped publishing the age-adjusted or the COVID mortality figures by age, because I went over that in one of my podcasts. The COVID mortality, if you're over 85, is 14.8%. Do you know what the mortality is for over 85 if you're COVID negative? 14. It's the same. It's the same.
Listen,
so they haven't published that graph again.
Even more compelling than that is, Fauci wrote that editorial to the New England Journal of Medicine, where he estimated the death rate from COVID-19 to be like a seasonal flu, and he put 0.1%, right? And that's substantially lower than the average death rate for the general population,
which is 0.8%. Right. Actually, it's now 1% with the narcotics epidemic. It's 1%.
Wow. So it's only a tenth of that. I mean, it's like you would survive longer with COVID.
Correct. In fact, I do that in my relative too. If you're in Russia, the per capita COVID death rate is less than 1 in 1 million.
Wow.
If we had to wait for COVID to kill everyone, you'd be immortal. You would live longer than Methuselah. Wow. But wait, let's look at the CD. Again, all you need to do is look at the CDC's figures. But we don't need to talk about what's a virus, what isn't a virus, blah, blah, blah. Let's go to the CDC Coronavirus 2019 COVID-19 surveillance. This is very good. And this is shocking. Hit the link, hit the link, hit the link. Or do I have to even hit the link? No, I don't have to hit the link. Okay, here. So what we have in the United States is the CDC.gov data, their data, starts February 1st and goes till 4/11. COVID deaths, 0. All of February, 0. Until February 29th, there's 5 deaths. All right. But wait, every year they keep these figures. And so they compare year over year. So in other words, deaths in January or February 29th of 2020 compared with 2019. The death rate was only 96% of what the expected death rate was. This is as all the states reported. So if we had an epidemic that was killing people, we would expect this year's death rate to at least be equal to last year's, don't you think?
At least. I would think it would be higher.
Not a single number, exactly. Not a single death statistic, not a single number in terms of percent of expected deaths is 100%. The latest one, so after social isolation and everything, lockdown, the actual deaths in the United States are only 65% of the deaths this time last year. Why do you think there's that great sudden drop?
Well, I actually had somebody look at this for me and pull the numbers off the CDC, and so how they report influenza and pneumonia deaths, right? And those they have the same symptoms as COVID, right?
No, it's the same ICD code, so they mix them together. The actual influenza alone deaths are minuscule.
Right. Yeah.
People a year die of it, maybe 2,000.
Right, and pneumonia is basically, people who with end-stage multiple chronic diseases often succumb to pneumonia, right?
Let's not let the system off the hook on that. There's hospital-acquired pneumonias and, let's hear it, ventilator-acquired pneumonia.
Well, I was just thinking most of those people are beyond ventilators when they die.
No. It's cause and effect. We're scrambling them. We have to separate these. So did you know if we take a healthy person and put them on a ventilator, 17% will die? Just from ventilator complications. All right? That 17% that's a substantial number. So a lot of people, because they're not going to the hospital, they're not getting on those ventilators. Now there's another class of pneumonia, which is people who are in the hospital for elective things. They get a hospital-acquired infection and blah, 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 and they die of pneumonia in the hospital. They may or may not end up on the ventilator. We don't know. So those deaths, the two deaths that are going to drop like a lead balloon because of this isolation, car accidents, that's about more or less 4,000 or 5,000 deaths a month, gone, because people aren't driving their car. The next is murder by medicine, because people are not going to hospitals for elective procedures. And since doctors kill more or less 40% of Americans, we can expect, if we go to another month of isolation, the 65% of expected death rate is going to drop to even 60 or 55. But the point is this: there is no disease process out there affecting the population and increasing people's death over what it already was last year. There is no such process. And so because there is no such process, face masks, hand washing, isolation, shutting down businesses is not going to in any way, it's unwarranted. Yes, if you tell everyone to stop driving their cars, deaths from car accidents are going to go down. But we as a country have to decide, how important is it for us to drive our cars? That decision was made a long time ago. People decided they would rather drive their cars and risk death. And that's, we as a society, we're a free society. Are people free to make that decision?
Well, we have been so far.
Well, yeah. So that's the real question here. So COVID-19, if you look at the CDC's own website, their own data, there's no evidence even of its existence. Again, it's like the COVID-19 thing standing in the room there. I'm telling you, Dr. Kaufman, you got to pay attention to this.
Well, let me just review this, because I want.
It's 200 pounds. It's going to get you. And I still think we're going to have to call the psychiatrist to declare you insane and lock you up for your own protection, because you are not taking precautions against that COVID-19. Right there, right there. It's over your left shoulder.
Don't forget, I am the psychiatrist. But listen, I want to clarify this, like, just to because this is a super important point about those death numbers. So you're saying that year to date, 2020, there's actually something like a 30 to 40% reduction in deaths in the United States, right? And a big part of that is due to reduction in healthcare, because all of the deaths from medical errors and from pharmaceuticals and vaccines.
Standard of care. These doctors were all doing it right. People are just dying from it.
Well, I'm just talking about the Johns Hopkins study with 250,000 a year.
Error. Look up the word error. The medical meaning of the word error means you did the right thing and the patient died. So the public misunderstand. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. So it's not like instead of giving 2 milligrams, you gave 20 milligrams.
Oh, no. You gave what you were supposed to. You intended for the patient to live, but he died, so it was an error.
Oh my gosh. I have to look at that study again.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I'll tell you, these people, the deeper you dig, the more you find, and finally it gets to the point it's not even fun to dig anymore. Like for me, I just walked away. Like,
right.
Okay. All right. I was counting how many people in the United States were killed by medicine. When the count got over 1 million, I actually started crying. So I decided to stop counting. Just stop counting.
So there's that Johns Hopkins study with 250,000, right? There's the JAMA study about prescription drugs with 128,000. So where are some of the other sources of the medically induced deaths that, I mean, over 1 million, that's an incredible number, because that's far higher than the leading cause of death as reported by the CDC, right?
Yes. But wait, once you get to 800,000, it's the leading cause of death. Why? Because you have to understand that all of those 800,000 were actually coded as cancer, as heart disease, as da-da-da-da-da-da. So every other cause of death has to be reduced by 40%. And then you see, oh my God. And this
so the people who died from chemotherapy, but not from the cancer.
Correct.
Yeah. I knew that's a big one that it's hard to get official reporting on.
It's even bigger than that. For example, most people who are on blood thinners die from their blood thinners. But if you really want to uncover it to a horrifying level, you want to go to the Inspector General's Medicare report on medical harm. That alone, he documents 18,000 Medicare people every month die from care as a result of care that the government is paying for. Well, at the end of the report, you expect them to call up the Attorney General. You expect someone some charges or some institutions closed or for them to stop paying for procedures. Like, no. And this is just hospital deaths. Then you can get into nursing home death. But if you just, so what I did was I took the per capita, so 18,000 is the number of people with Medicare coverage who died, not because of their illness, not because of their age, but just because of the medical care they received that Medicare paid for. You with me?
Right. So they only have to report it because they paid for it.
Whatever. That's a whole nother sense of reasoning.
Because it's the Surgeon General.
I don't like to get into cause and effect stuff, but they have the data and they can look at it. But, okay, so 18,000, and you take how many people are on Medicare. And then you take that and generalize it to the whole population. And that's where you easily get over it.
Wow.
So if we all are under a Medicare-like payment program, boom.
Right, which is what a lot of people are pushing for, right? I mean, especially the Democratic presidential candidates.
Yeah. And that's really what this is about, too. Because we have people begging for a vaccine, people begging for a shutdown. We even have Americans here in Panama demanding that Panama shut everything down and confine everyone to their homes for at least 2 weeks to get the virus under control. Even though in Panama, I mean, the death rate is so small, it's ridiculous.
Wow. So are the Panamanians?
They want people to beg for a police state. They want people to beg for being killed by medicine because it's not something you can easily externally enforce. And so really it's up to each person individually to decide how they want to live and how they want to die. This is not about COVID. Nothing to do with COVID. It has to do with who's running your life. And are you okay with that? And how would you like that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you on this. And obviously, you know, there's really no evidence of illness, but there is all this evidence of taking away our First Amendment rights, our freedoms, and you know, it's unprecedented in my experience. But and it's amazing that so many people are just unable to see it. You know,
but let's talk about their vision. How come their vision is so blurry? How come they're not in sharp focus? Like I am.
Do you have a theory about that?
Oh yeah. I mean, people say, "Oh, Jennifer, you know, you're a genius." No. I wish I could claim special genius status, but no, I don't think so. It goes back to medical school that I was very careful throughout my life to adjust my financial incentives, so that I never had an incentive to lie to myself or to allow someone else to lie to me. In other words, I led a life I thought was totally independent of the government, but I found out no when they took my license away. But I narrowly organized my life so that if I died, nobody got paid. That was very important to me. I knew that because I grew up in.
You mean no creditors got paid?
Nobody got paid. I didn't have life insurance, disability insurance, health insurance. Nobody got paid. I die, nobody gets paid. So that was really important because as a kid, people started trying to kill me when I was 3. So there were many, many attempts on my life, you know, over the years. So I thought, how can I make sure nobody killed me? I said, at least you want to give me no motive. So I was nice and kind to everybody, but I made sure when I die, nobody gets paid. And so most people have a life where that's just not true. Check your insurances. The next thing is people are getting a check from the government, whether it's a child care tax credit, whether it's a Social Security check, whether it's a retirement check, whether it's a paycheck if you work for the government, or even worse, a license. And so these people have already put the government in a paternal role in their life. And so as a kid, when your parents tell you something, it sounds good. They're paying the bills. So that's really the crux of the matter. It's not that people are that stupid. So what people need to do then, and this is going to be a painful transition for many people, or certainly uncomfortable, is you need to transition and take the government out of that paternal role in your life. Now, I'm an extremist. So once I lost my medical license, I said, that's it. That's it. No more licenses for me. I'm not going to have a driver's license. I'm not going to have this license. No licenses. And so because I've decided that no one gets paid when I died, and I'm not going to have any licenses, oh my God, can you imagine? I have no paperwork in my life. How free I am. I had no idea how encumbered I was with all of these paperwork this, paperwork that, paperwork the other thing. And credit card points, you know, they had, you know, these stores and they want, do you have points? No, I don't have points. In fact, you have points? Yeah, give me your card. Yeah, give me my points. Yeah, done. So that screws up all their data and everything, right? Because now this person's purchasing.
Yeah. Because that's just to track us, all that stuff, right?
You can't track it, so it screws up the whole database. And of course, I made a friend because I gave her my points. But you have got to live your life creatively, have fun, and put yourself in control. And what's happened is this COVID-19 thing, they just sprung it on the public to see how far out of control people are in their lives. And do we have a big enough percent of the population willing to put the government in that mommy daddy category? And we'll see how it goes.
Right. So they're kind of testing it and then seeing what they can get away with before they plan their next step. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I keep thinking that after these stimulus checks all get deposited, that they're going to ask for something from us. You think that's a possibility? Have you seen these tracing programs?
You know who's not depositing their check? In fact, because I don't even have a registered address.
I can't wait to refuse my check and send it right back to them.
I wouldn't do that. I would take the check, make a copy of it, or put it in a safe place. So if they accuse you of having cashed it, you can say, here it is, I did not cash it. That's going to be important down the road to establish that you didn't cash it. And what you're saying is, first of all, I believe that whoever cashes that stimulus check will have obligations, period.
I agree with that. You're basically agreeing to something.
Yes. If you have a driver's license, you're obligated to donate your organs. If you have registered to vote, you're obligated to jury duty. So there's these very burdensome obligations. So again, a lot of people need those checks. You know, they really do need them.
Yeah,
so go ahead and deposit a check, but arrange your life so that you don't have to deposit the next stimulus check. And also, this is going to happen again next year. It went so well this year. It will happen again next year. This was a pretty good run. But I was in medical practice for 10 years. And each of those 10 years, there was a flu shot. And each year, every single year, without fail, the shot did not work. They announced to us doctors it didn't work. Oh my God, we got the wrong strain. It didn't work. And finally I said, okay, done. I'm not taking it. I'm not administering it. I'm going to have nothing to do with it. And sure enough, the next year came. Oh, it didn't work. The November shots didn't work. Take it again in March. If it didn't work in November, how am I going to take it in March before? And then, so the flu shot has never worked any of the past 20 years or 30 years that it's been given. And the medical industrial complex has come out and made that announcement. But you have to ask the question. If indeed there's a COVID-19, and some people believe it, that's okay. Is that vaccine going to work? No, it's not. No. It's the same technology. It's not going to work.
I haven't found evidence that there's any vaccine that works.
There isn't any vaccine that works. So I thought, and I did this painstakingly. I investigated one vaccine after another, after another, after another. And every single one of them, there was absolutely not only was there no scientific evidence that worked, there was no epidemiological evidence that worked. And then if you go into the government websites, they say, we really think that non-exposure to the causative agent is what has caused the absence of the disease. Okay.
It just disappeared from the environment?
No. We had different practices. So when we had these childhood diseases, you can look at the graph. The real correlation is indoor toilets.
Oh, yeah. No, I've seen that.
But that's huge. So these infections did exist in childhood. But once you got indoor toilets, what did you have? Now a toilet was only shared by 5 people, not 5,000. Then now we're in an era where most houses, there's like 1 toilet per person. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I have that.
If you're a COVID believer, if you believe that the virus really does exist, there's no evidence that vaccines are effective. In fact, quite the contrary. Every year for 30 years, the flu shot has failed to work. This is by the industry confession. So the vaccine is not going to help, but what's there to help when deaths are down by 40%, 35, 40%? I think it's time for everyone to go dancing in the street, holding hands, kissing, and having free sex or something.
Right, because we should be celebrating that there's actually a lot fewer deaths this year, so people are living longer. Maybe can we attribute that to COVID-19, that it's some kind of fountain of youth?
Exactly. But again, next thing we need to understand is, are they willing to give up their cars and stop driving their cars? Are they willing to live in captivity in order to have this 65% number? Or are they willing to live with freedom and have the 96%, where the death rate is closer to what it was last year?
Right. Well, it seems to me that if people drove their cars and lived free and avoided the healthcare system, then maybe we'd be at 70%.
Right, because most of those car accident deaths, they went to the hospital, then got killed by the hospital.
Oh, yeah, or they were a resident doing a long shift, and then post-call they drove home, right? Because that was actually studies showing that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's a wild time, and I think the only answer really is to look at everything in your life where you are dependent upon the government, and to reduce, minimize, eliminate that dependence. And so my father told me something when I was a kid. As I grew up in the civil rights movement, and it was like, oh, the government's going to save us. He said, no, never go to the government for salvation. If you have a problem, throw yourself on the mercy of your enemies before you resort to government relief. And he said that more than once. He said, throw yourself on the mercy of your enemies.
That is great advice. So Jennifer,
it's a good stead.
I may pass that one down to my kids. Have you ever looked into this area of legal study or of law study, how to establish or correct your status so that you can separate from the government?
No, irrelevant.
Really?
Because I have looked into it lightly,
mm-hmm.
but action has to follow the structure. So if your actions don't honor the separateness of the structure, then the structure is void. In other words, if you are separate from the government, but you want to send your kid to a government school, you just violated your separateness.
Absolutely.
So far better, to get the structure of separation first. And then once you have the structure of separation, the other separation will actually follow. For example, if you decide you're not going to register to vote, you're not going to be called for jury duty. Done. End of discussion. If you decide not to have a driver's license, then you're not going to, no one's going to harvest your organs. They're going to see your body passed out by the side of the road, check, no driver's license, can't take these organs. Oh, God, too long. So, so for me, if I want to go someplace, I catch a cab or, oh my God, I walk. Anything less than a 30-minute walk, I walk. And it's just been wonderful for my health. Also, those of you, your food supply, get a tower garden. Anyone can grow all the food they need in their living room now. I have tower gardens. Energy, you can just start by turning off the lights when the sun sets. You would be amazed how much energy you're going to save just right there. And then for the rest of your needs, you can make an assessment. Can you use solar? Can you use wind? Can you use water? Can you
Fuel, alcohol.
Generator, yeah, or whatever. For example, here, there's no infrastructure. So we use gas tanks that operates our stove. So you don't have to have a pipeline into your house with unlimited billing in your bank account. So, think of ways to be independent. You can have a compost toilet in your house for the price of $45, $50 a toilet. You can install it yourself. 5-gallon bucket, press on toilet seat top. There you go, good to go. So once you realize how simple and how cheap it is to be independent, then you realize the cost of dependency. For example, the Amish people in the United States are independent of the government. They have emerged as a major wealth block.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is, for every dollar you pay the government, maybe 1 penny is used for services of any kind. And people would really shock themselves. And we're not talking about living a sparse life. We're just talking about independence. That having this compost toilet is so much cheaper than even maintaining your regular toilet that you already have. Having your own tower garden. Now you're not poisoning the plants that you're raising. Your health is so much better. And guess what? Every time you pick a plant, you can propagate a little bit of it and put it right back in this perpetual system. So being independent, even in the medium run, like say the next 3 to 6 months, most people will find that they're much, much wealthier. And if you have kids that are going to school, hey, have them stay home and man the tower garden. Hey, tower garden, you, compost toilet, it work.
That's been one of the real silver linings of this whole situation, is having the experience of having your kids home, with the parents where they should be in the first place, not raised by strangers in a government school.
Now you're being idyllic. You must not have any grade school kids that are staying home. Am I correct?
No, I do. I have an 8 and 11-year-old.
Okay, and they were going to school and now they're staying home?
Correct.
Okay. So many people are finding, once these kids stay home, is they should realize that the school has been training a spy and a traitor. In other words, that's why child abuse is supposedly going up. It's because these kids are coming home and parents are like, oh, no. Oh, no. This has got to be corrected. I will not tolerate this. So, however they restore order, it has to be restored. And they have to confront the reality that going to school, the school has created this monster that you are now spending time with. So hopefully people will take it in a positive way. Hey, wait a minute. I don't want to send my kid back into that environment for him to become a tyrannical monster that can't take care of himself. And they can show kids how to grow their own food, how to sew their own clothes, how to repair stuff, how to take care of the house, and how to handle the different systems in the house so that the family can be independent.
Right. Yeah. But they, of course, they don't teach any of that at the schools. And, my kids, maybe it's a little different because they're in a private Montessori school. So they don't, there are some things I don't agree with there, but overall it's not like a public school. But some of the people that I work with, who do send their kids to public school have actually been saying that they're like, I never considered this before, but I like having my kids home and I might do homeschooling. Right. Next year, and of course, I know that there was a conference at Harvard, basically trying to establish like regulatory guidelines for homeschooling. Exactly. I think a reaction to this, because they're worried about that, because then they won't have control of
the next generation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit, because like a lot of people, they're really stuck on this virus thing and this contagion thing. And, it's very hard to overcome because we've all been, taught this for so long. And one of the things that people bring into us. Yeah. So a lot of people have been bringing up herpes and saying, oh, well, herpes, it's sexually transmitted and this and that. And, it's a virus and all that. And I know you have a very different take on this, and I think we agree on it. So what would you say to that question? Well, what about sexual transmission of herpes?
Or anything else for that matter. So herpes is, let's just agree on, it's an illness, you have an outbreak, and the outbreaks recur. Okay. And herpes outbreaks in the genital areas is associated with sexual activity, and therefore it's called a sexually transmitted disease.
But you're saying like when someone engages in sexual activity that they might have an outbreak that's timed with the actual sexual activity.
Yeah, after, yes. After.
Right, like they have sex, then they have an outbreak.
Correct. Now, I believe that theory. That's what I was taught in medical school. The virus causes it, the outbreak, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. But then I said, whoa. The same virus causes chickenpox at age 3. Okay. Then the same virus causes an outbreak when you're sexually active. And then it causes shingles when you're 65. Same virus. Okay. So because it's the same virus, it causes all 3 of these diseases. There cannot possibly be any such thing as immunity. Right? Because you have it, you get it again. You get it again. You get it
right.
again. You get it again. Okay. So immunity. So that means don't even think about a vaccine because the immune system doesn't have the ability to develop immunity in response to infection. Okay, so chickenpox vaccine is not going to work. Herpes vaccine, not going to work. Shingles vaccine, not going to work. Okay, so we got that figured out.
And they have 2 out of those 3 of them are on the market, right?
Of course. But I'm just saying, logically, we have sorted this out. So the vaccines make no sense because the logic behind the vaccine is once you get infected, never infected again because the immune system remembers. Okay, so for herpes, that is not true. Gotcha. So what's happening at age 4 years old during sexual activity, and again, when you're over 65? And what really brought this out to me was I was vegan for 26 years. Now, I've never had a herpes outbreak. However, I noticed in my medical practice that as I instructed my patients to go vegan, I went through a point where 1/3 of all my patients had a herpes outbreak. Now they eventually got over it. 1/3. I said, well, wait a minute. Well, 1/3 of my patients have shingles or herpes or whatever. 1/3. Of course, I didn't have anything, so you weren't getting it from me. But then over the years, and thinking about it, I realized what was really going on was you have a growth spurt in the 3 to 5 year age range, and the kid has a connective tissue shortage. And so that skin is not repaired and maintained. Chickenpox outbreak. Sexual activity. Normal. Friction. Scrapes off the mucosal layer. And if the person's on a low collagen diet, they're going to get herpetic outbreaks. Older person, no teeth. Not eating as much collagen-rich foods. And so I experimented with that. Someone has herpes, great. Put them on collagen. Gone. So, yeah.
It's just as simple as that.
You know, life is so simple. And we try to complicate it.
I've been learning that over and over again, working with people in this paradigm outside of allopathic medicine. So why is it that so many people are deficient in collagen?
Because everyone's been sold on a low cholesterol diet, and the cholesterol is attached to the collagen-rich foods. And people are eating extra lean foods, and people are eating
skinless and boneless chicken breasts.
Oh my God! Thanks, preservatives. I tell my patients not to eat anything skinless and boneless. Yeah. So basically, the modern diets that have been adopted, and that's what's causing it.
And what are the best foods to replenish your collagen?
Pig ears, ham hocks, pig feet, cow feet, chicken feet.
So it sounds like a lot of feet.
A lot of feet.
Yeah. So I mentioned this to a lot of people, and they ask me, "Is there an alternative?"
People ask that question too, and I tell them not even 1/10 is good. The alternative is the alternative is so far less effective that it's just almost dishonest to suggest it.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what I've been doing that my kids don't even know the difference, and they love it, is when I make chicken soup in a pressure cooker, put a whole chicken in and a bunch of vegetables and some herbs, and I add like 3 or 4 chicken feet to the mix.
Right.
And when it, after it's all cooked and I put it in the refrigerator, it is, one solid bowl of Jell-O.
Exactly. It's pretty stiff and tough, strong.
And
that
yeah.
makes it so the kids won't strain their ankle or break their ankle and whatever. Like my South African Americans have very strong bones because they eat these pieces and parts. And so after the civil rights movement, many blacks said, well, we're not going to eat that slave food anymore. And so my brothers, their daughters broke bones as teenage girls.
Wow. And we're talking about like ham hocks and fatback and things like that. Yeah, that stuff tastes amazing in the Southern cuisine. I went to medical school in Charleston, and so I got a good dose of that kind of cooking.
Yeah. So, what are you going to say? And people gone through school K through 12, where they complicate stuff and they just talk endlessly and teach you nothing. I think just about nothing I learned K through 12 was true. And then, in college, they complicate things more. And then medical school, oh, my God. Dude, it's simple dehydration. No, it's not a heart attack. If they had a glass of water last night, he wouldn't have had a heart attack today. Come on. So they take something that's very simple like that and turn it into a $50,000 or $100,000 revenue generator. And people need to understand that by complicating these issues, like COVID-19, for example, that's all that's happening. Is they're just being fleeced.
Well, I'll tell you, you have to read through a lot of articles to figure out what's really going on with it, because there's all of that, smoke screen and obfuscation that you're talking about. Just like in medical school, there's so much information they throw at you. You have no time to actually think about any of it. You just have the ability to take it in and regurgitate it, right? And that's what they expect, right? I mean, that pimping in the surgery rotation, like if you can't name that part of the anatomy, that's it. You're stuck holding the retractor for 10 hours.
Right. So what I did was you got to game the system. Once you take a look at that system, you're like, okay, I see what you're saying. I got it. So what I did was on nights where I could, I imposed on myself 8 p.m. bedtime. So when I wasn't on call, I didn't have to be someplace. I was in bed by 8. I also gave up my social life pretty much. But the other thing I did is where's this going? Well, I need to pass part 1 of the boards. So you go to Kaplan, pay them some money, and they give you the answers. And those answers are also, by the way, the same questions they ask you when they, as you say, pimp you, whatever, in the operating room. So I always had the answers to those questions because I paid Kaplan for the answer. That was my shortcut.
Yeah. It is weird, all the tests, and then, people fail the tests, and, people that went to medical school never failed a test before, right? And now they're
pushed. But it's designed to fail. They deliberately don't teach you it's on the test. The answers are only at Kaplan.
Right. And plus they set it up, the statistics, so they set the passing, grade as such that the same number of people fail each time.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. It's Kaplan. So I graduated in the top 25% of my medical school class.
Right. At Penn, right?
Yep. Ivy League school.
And it didn't work out well for the system, though.
Somebody lost a job over that one.
Yeah, I'm sure.
My God.
I know the people in that.
Because I only allowed an hour. And Monday's my busy day. So I'll book. So I have to go on to the next appointment. But I hope that I've been of some help.
Oh, you have been. I can't believe that we didn't get to talk about your most famous thing, which is turpentine.
Oh, we could do it another time.
I was on a show with comedian Owen Benjamin last night. I don't know if you heard of him, but he is a big proponent of turpentine, and he's familiar with your work. Yeah, so we were sort of telling jokes about turpentine a little bit, and mostly extolling the virtues.
Oh, wonderful. All right, awesome. So people can find me at vitalitycapsules.com. vitalitycapsules.com.
And what about your weekly show?
Oh, yes. My weekly show is a podcast. I release it on Vimeo, Facebook, and YouTube. I don't know when I'll be censored on all 3. Who knows? We're setting up a fourth platform, but for now you can find it there. And the way to get notified about it is to go to vitalitycapsules.com, enter your email, and we'll send you notifications of the show.
Great. And don't forget to download your free Candida Cleaner Report, which will tell you everything you want to know about turpentine. And you people know that I've been sending everyone that way. So please check that out if you're interested in real detoxification. So thank you so much, Dr. Jennifer Daniels, for joining me here today. It's been a real treat. I'm really honored to have a conversation with someone I consider a major mentor. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.